or spring. Cases are
Good evening, everybody. For the record, Thursday, August 26th, 2021, time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. As always, we start with our pledge to our flag. So Councilmember Hornby, would you lead us?
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Hornby. And for the record this evening, we have 6 council members with us in person. And Councilmember Cuevas, are you on the phone?
I'm on the phone.
All right, thank you, Jose. First item on our agenda this evening will be the consent items, which include approval of this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from our previous meetings. I'd entertain a motion if we had one.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion that we adopt the consent items, including this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from previous meetings.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt this evening's consent items, including approving this evening's agenda, vouchers, and the minutes from our previous meetings. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have one presentation this evening regarding Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and Councilmember Hornby has agreed to read that into the record.
Proclamation, whereas childhood cancer is the leading cause of death by disease in children, and whereas 1 in 285 children in the United States will be diagnosed by their 20th birthday, and whereas there are 43 children per day, or 15,780 children annually that will be diagnosed with cancer, as well as approximately 40,000 children on active treatment at any given time. And whereas the average age of diagnosis is 6 years old compared to 66 years old for adults. Diagnosis and 80% of children cancer patients are diagnosed late and with metastatic disease. And whereas on average there has been a 0.6% increase in incidence per year since the mid-70s, resulting in an overall incidence of 24% over the last 40 years. And whereas 2/3 of childhood cancer patients will have chronic health conditions as a result of their treatment toxicity, with 1/4 being classified as severe to life-threatening. And whereas approximately 1/2 of childhood cancer families rate the associated financial toxicity due to out-of-pocket expenses as considerable to severe. And whereas in the last 20 years, only 4 new drugs have been approved by the FDA to specifically treat childhood cancer. And whereas researchers and healthcare professionals work diligently, dedicating their expertise and to treat and cure children with cancer. And whereas too many children are affected by this deadly disease, and more must be done to raise awareness to find a cure. Now, therefore, I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, do hereby declare September 2021 to be Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Wenatchee, and encourage all people in the city to join me in this special observance. I witness, therefore, I have caused the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on the 26th of day of August 2021.
Thank you, Councilmember Hornby. I don't know if anyone's here to pick that up, but we'll make sure it gets to where it needs to go. So thank you very much. This is our time for citizen comment. Any member of the audience wish to address the City Council on something that's on tonight's agenda or something different? This would be your time. We'll give you 3 minutes, ask you to come up. See no takers. We'll move on to our regular agenda item. We have a small agenda tonight, just 2 items. The first is regarding body-worn cameras. So Chief Crown, come on up. And I think you have some revised paperwork that might have come today, or there's also a handout tonight as well. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, Chief Steve Crown.
The item before you is master customer agreement and equipment purchase and software license addendum. The addendum actually became not needed in the quote. They were able to address some of our concerns, so just the two items. There is a lot of technical jargon within this customer agreement. This has been reviewed by City Attorney Steve Smith. This is the first step in going towards getting our body-worn cameras. We had 3 vendors that we looked at their products, one of which was over double the cost for body-worn cameras and their associated software. You can kind of see on the fiscal impacts, the total amount of $281,415.18 will be the cost of the body-worn cameras for a 5-year contract. That number is correct. You may see some slight adjustments into the years 1 through 5. Evidently, they had difficulty figuring out our tax laws in the state of Washington.
A lot of us have that problem.
yeah, that's for sure. But overall, the cost for these cameras, literally half of it is covered through in gross substitute Senate Bill 5092, which was directed from the Office of Financial Management to defray some of the costs associated with some of the legislation that happened during this last legislative session for reform measures for police. I couldn't think of a better cost to cover with those funds. About $141,000 came to the city, has already arrived and is in the general fund for that has been slated for the purchase of these. So we'll be able to cover year 1 and probably year 2 out of those funds, as well as any other funding sources through the general fund. So these are definitely a item that under these reform measures are a good transparency tool for the department to build public trust, as well as protection for police officers that are going to be working under these new laws. So I think it's within the best interest of the city to move forward with this, as well as an addition. This has already gone in front of the Finance Committee. There was a full presentation put on with the implementation plan and how we plan to address this. We're going to actually get our cameras delivered to us by November. We'll start working with the software and training up. Kevin Hansen, who's in the back of the room, did some of the yeoman's work on all this. He's been equally as frustrated as I have dealing with this vendor, but hopefully their product supersedes any frustration we have over contracts.
And the reason you chose this company is because it's the one that also already does the ones that the dash cams and also runs Spillman?
Correct. WatchGuard Video was actually purchased by Motorola. Motorola is also the parent agency for Spillman, which is our records management system. It really makes it easy to integrate those 2 different systems. We're not just getting cameras. The software package that comes with this is pretty robust. It will actually allow us to set up a similar to Crime Stoppers, where you have anonymous tips that can come in. There's also the ability to map out throughout the entire city where cameras are that are not owned by the city. You can imagine that if you had a homicide, if you had a vehicle that fled the scene, in that investigation, you can actually go through the software and see where these registered cameras are and be able to do your canvas based off of that information and try and get different camera angles and additional evidence. So it's really a very good tool. It has transcription associated with it. There's 2 bills that were in the last legislative package that I presented to the council at a work session that requires recordation for felons as well as juvenile suspects. So this will allow us to meet that standard as well. And that standard needs to be addressed January 1st of 2022, which is when we plan to have these cameras in full operation.
I know you and your team negotiated a bunch on this, and I know that it did change towards the end, so maybe a motion that authorizes my signature in substantially the same form as is in tonight's packet might be helpful in case there's another small tweak or two along the route. Excited that we're finally getting there, Chief. I know this is probably, I know you've been talking about doing this for a while, and maybe you weren't the proponent of being an early adopter, so to speak, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to do what's required. And
For sure.
all right, any questions for Chief? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm kind of curious on the, it says there's a one-time replacement at no additional cost, but I just have to believe that given the nature of being a police officer, there's going to be damage to these things as time goes on. Is there a warrant or insurance that we can get for these, since the cameras themselves are probably a big share of the cost?
Yeah, there's 2 really interesting components to your question there. First of all, on year 3, all of the cameras will be replaced as part of the contract. So any new upgrades that come along in the length of that contract, new camera design, they will replace them all on year 3. And you know, that is a gimmick that a lot of companies like this use, is that if they replace everything on year 3, you still got 2 years left on the contract. So you don't get new cameras until the 6th year. So they kind of want you to enter into that second phase. But as far as the replacement of them, yes, it's costly to the company. These are super rugged. I think they stand behind their product very well. And if we did end up having one of these devices get damaged, they would replace it.
Okay, thank you.
As long as it's not lost. If they can get a serial number off of it, we're golden.
Chief, I have a couple of quick questions. First, do we have any body cams in operation currently?
No, we
Okay.
just have the dash cameras, and
Okay.
again, that's the integration piece that makes it very nice to go with this company.
Yeah, okay. Your number here, you're buying 45 or 45 as part of the package.
Mhm.
So who wears them? Just patrol only? Do detectives, SWAT, Columbia River Drug Task Force?
Yeah, if you're in uniform, you're wearing it.
If you're in uniform?
Yep.
If you're plainclothes, you don't?
If you're a detective and you go out on a scene and you've got your external vest on, it's coming with you. It's part of the uniform.
Okay.
Yep.
I see. Okay. Yeah, and you answered my question about when it's going to go operational. Obviously, this is going to open up an interesting can of worms for Public Records Act requests and those kinds of things. We run into this with the Link Transit as soon as we put cameras on the bus, and everybody wanted
Mhm.
it was quite frankly a nightmare for, still is to some degree. Does this, because of the amount of footage and all those kinds of things, obviously there's going to have to be redaction and
Mhm.
certain things and so forth and so on. What kind of increase in manpower is this going to generate, do you think?
That's going to be addressed in the 2022 budget discussions. I will be asking for additional workstation in records. We know that there is going to be a records person that is going to retire in 18 months. So I'm going to be asking for authority to backfill her position, and in that same amount of time, build capacity for the records management side of of the storage of this footage, because now you've got two different camera systems that are going to be working in tandem with each other. You'll need to link a dash cam with a body cam within a case file. Retrieval of that is going to be important, as well as retention schedule. Retention is set by an officer initially, but that always has to be checked by a second person to make sure that it's correctly retained within a time frame. So yes, there is going to be possibly, we're going to use 2022 as a baseline to figure out what the workload really looks like before we ask for a permanent position, but the backfill will help us build that capacity in anticipation that we know that there's going to be additional public records requests and additional footage that we're going to have to provide to the courts as well as other entities. So that's exactly the plan.
Yeah. Is retention the same or similar to like your dash cam footage and that kind of?
Yeah. I think that there's going to be more footage that is captured on those body-worn cameras, though, because they stay on throughout the entire contact, whereas a lot of times you end up getting officers that walk out of the view of the dash camera, and that will be captured on the body-worn camera. So, yep. This is cloud-based, so we're not going to be asking Dale to give us a bunch of server space. That's one very attractive piece to this as well.
Was it automatically downloaded to the cloud, or at the end of the day, do you got to plug it into something, or?
It's automatically stored temporarily before you end up clicking on the retention piece,
Okay.
and then it's up in the cloud.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
You bet.
And batteries, these things last for a full shift, or?
They say that they'll last for a full 12 hours, but we'll have a stock of batteries that are already in the charger, that somebody, if they know that their battery is getting low, they can go into the office and grab another one. What's nice about these is that you literally, when you set them in a charging docking station, they're downloading all that footage. So it will be a little bit onerous initially for officers, because they're now going to have to say, oh yes, I've got to take a portion of my day and make sure that record is downloaded, and then they'll have to check the box within the software to retain it.
All right, any questions for Chief? If not, I would entertain a motion if we had one.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for the city council to approve the master customer agreement in essentially the same form as in our packet tonight, and the equipment purchase and software license addendum for the purchase of body-worn cameras.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Esparza, to approve the master customer agreement in substantially the same form as is presented tonight, and equipment purchase and software license addendum for the purchase of body-worn cameras. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate your work on this. Jacob, sidewalks in front of the high school or next to the high school?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jacob Heiler, Engineering Services Manager. As the Mayor mentioned, I'm here tonight to talk about the Millerdale Sidewalk project. As you know, the city was awarded a $700,000 TIB Complete Streets grant back in 2019 that had a variety of different elements associated with the work plan that makes up that $700,000. I was here about 7 weeks ago to talk about the Washington Street Traffic Calming Project, and I'm here tonight to talk about the next phase of that work plan. And so tonight we are asking for authorization to award a construction contract for filling about 420 feet of sidewalk on Millerdale. On the screen you can see the gap that we're talking about, and so this is at the intersection of Vista Place. So on the north side of Millerdale there's a gap from roughly where my cursor is now down to about this location. Sidewalk extends down to Miller as you move east, and then up to Lambert as you move west. And so it's a it's a connection that will serve a lot of the sidewalk network that's already existing. Let's see, the project was advertised via the MRSC Small Works roster on August 4th. The city received 2 bids on August 18th, with the low bid coming from Rednick and Sons Excavation. That's the same firm that's working on our Washington Street project right now. The bid came in just over $140,000, roughly about $20,000 over our engineer's estimate. If the project is awarded, we would expect it to start around September 20th. And the contract includes 25 working days, about 5 weeks. Should be done by the end of October. Unless you have further questions, I'm happy to take any questions, but we're asking, staff is recommending that we move forward with authorizing the mayor to sign this construction contract.
Is Rudnick a local company?
They are, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did our First Street Bikeway project last
Got it,
year.
okay.
And
Then
then
they're
our
doing this
Washington
one?
Street
Okay.
project now, so, yeah, they've been doing some good work for us.
Good. Well, I know we're excited to get this little part of it.
I'm just
Sidewalk.
curious internally how the different gaps are prioritized.
So we don't have a great prioritization scheme right now. There's been some effort in the past to come up with a pedestrian master plan. That effort hasn't progressed extremely well, but it's something that I think would be a good thing to go through, because yeah, there's nothing that says, this one's more important than another. And that's a tough thing to prioritize as well, right? I mean, the priorities of someone in one district are different than a different district. Where people walk would obviously be the priority to them. And so,
Right, yeah.
Around the schools is a logical place because you have more kids walking. But beyond that, no, we don't have a prioritization
Yeah.
scheme currently.
Okay, I was just curious, I've ran across 2 really odd sections on Princeton between 9th and Westwood.
Okay.
And so I went and looked up, I know I'm taking time here, but to see if we had right-of-way, and it's the same right-of-way, but there's these 2 corners, one at Princeton and Westwood and one at 9th. On Princeton, the students walking to Lewis and Clark walk in mud.
Mhm.
But we have the right-of-way there, and I'm just puzzled when I'm walking by. I said, okay, there's sidewalk in between these 2 places. And how come there aren't on Princeton on that side there?
One side doesn't even have curbing around 9th Street.
Well, that part of
or
Princeton, I'm
7th,
talking about
yeah.
north of 9th Street.
Yeah,
the- between 9th and Westwood, on the way to Lewis and Clark there. Yeah, well, yeah, the other ones.
7th and 9th, there's a lot of gaps.
Yeah.
too.
Anyway, I was just curious.
Yeah, and I assume a lot of that has to do with how things have developed over time. Whether it was city standard or county standard, it's.
Well,
it's tough
yeah,
to
I
say.
kind of guessed, oh gee, there was an orchard here and that was the orchard house and it wasn't put in, but it must have happened because the right of way is the same width, so who knows?
Yeah, and as we move forward, we're trying to become eligible for the next round of the Complete Streets cycle, and so, sidewalk gaps is always something that.
Got to spend your money first.
Does well, exactly, but it is something that would do well, and so having,
And it would be nice.
coming up with a way to prioritize.
And we're talking about, a little bit of funding maybe a next cycle to be able to start knocking out some of those gaps and start spreading that out and getting, because we have a lot of them and, that project right there might be a, $15,000 or $20,000 project, but boy, if it completes the gap, that's one that
Wow.
should be a pretty high on our priority list.
And there, one other issue with one of those, there's unseen hole. I'm afraid someone's going to step in that, but
If it's a right away, let us know. We'll throw some asphalt in it.
it's all dirt.
Yeah. We'll throw some asphalt in it. I don't know. What do you throw in there?
Yeah, there's an extra lump laying around someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, thank you, Jacob.
All right, any questions for Jacob? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Well, Your Honor, I'd make a motion for City Council to award the construction contract for Millerdale Avenue Sidewalk, City Project Number 2005-P2 to Rudnick and Sons LLC and authorize the mayor to sign the contract documents.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Harold. to award the construction contract for Millerdale Avenue Sidewalk, City Project number 2005-P2 to Rudnick and Sons LLC, and authorize the mayor to sign the the contract documents. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Your Honor, I'd just like to make a comment here. This has been a project that I've been watching closely. I have a constituent that lives, up in towards the hills up there, and contacted me a couple of years ago about, can't we do something about this? Or my daughter walking to school. And so we've been in touch, and so it's good to see it finally fruition. So Gary, I'm sorry I don't, if you're listening and watching tonight, sorry I don't remember your last name, but we finally got it done, so it's coming.
Yeah. It's good. Glad to finally get some of that stuff done. So mayor's report, I don't have a ton on my list. Obviously, we met in a work session last week. I did have the Public Facility District bond rating call yesterday with Moody's. So we'll wait to see if we get a bond rating from them probably the next couple of weeks. I did meet with Shiloh yesterday to talk about the Chamber's contract. This is year 5 of 5-year contract. So it sounds like we'll get a renewal with something in the neighborhood of the same fee they got in 2019. So I think we won't have any problem putting that together. I did meet with the downtown Kiwanis folks on Tuesday. That was very nice. PFD did have its board meeting today, and that went well. And then just lots of little things sort of going on. The PFD is becoming a pretty busy thing for me right now, just in terms of doing the bonding, and that's just taking a lot of work from my behalf to make that happen. So been extremely busy doing that, and hopefully we'll get that all financed up and wrapped up in a bow here in the next 30 days or so. You guys did see the sales tax numbers that came out yesterday. So again, another very good month from June. And I expect that to continue for quite a little bit. Brad did present to the Finance Committee today some just very preliminary budget numbers. We'll get the first run at stuff sort of next week, but he's starting to plug in some revenue projections and projections for salaries and benefit increases and those sorts of things. So I think it's sort of coming along, but we'll go through the normal process of requests and asks, and he's just sort of getting his preliminary stuff together. But he's been doing that off and on for the last month or so, because he's, as you know, he's sort of on top of things that way. So as most of your department heads are, quite frankly, it's a pretty remarkable group of folks that work for us. Council members?
Just, Mayor and I were at the Lake Transit event here
Last Thursday, yeah.
last Thursday.
Yeah.
Been going to a lot of those things, can't keep them all straight.
Yep.
But at any rate, ribbon cutting for the new inductive charging unit that's state of the art, first one in the world basically to work like we were using it.
Yeah.
So I've gotten a lot of good press on that, and then there was a summit after that, an electronic transportation summit, and some really, really interesting presentations from people. Guess personally, I was quite impressed with the Secretary of State Department of Transportation,
Yeah, Roger
Secretary
Millar is a
Millar.
pretty smart guy, yeah.
And so they're just we're on the radar out there. People know what we're doing good stuff here, and it's good to know.
And did you make it to the Discovery Center?
I did.
At the PUD, and I had to leave early to get to my
Yeah,
call. Did you get to go in?
I did get to in.
How'd it look?
It really.
Pictures I saw look pretty amazing.
It's first class.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, and we did have, staff's been working internally on our infra grant. We did have I was not part of the phone call, but Laura and Rob and some of the team members had a discussion with Union Gap. So Union Gap got infra funding a couple of years ago, and so we're sort of picking their brain about when do we expect to hear from US DOT, and what's a term sheet look like, and because part of our grant, it's got deadlines and when stuff has to be built, and I think their comment was don't be in a hurry. So I think that the panic of, we got to hurry up and go do something, I think the Union Gap people said, it will take US DOT. They literally just signed their agreement and they got their grant award 2 years ago. So we were sort of thinking we'd be doing agreements this fall, and it sounds like it's going to be. So we are going to meet with our state DOT folks and federal highways about if we start spending money now on design, is it reimbursable? Is it not? We're just trying to get our hands around sort of how we get started here. So, and Laura's still working on the NEPA stuff and is deeply involved in all of those meetings. So, anything else, council members? We don't meet next week, I don't believe.
Your Honor.
Yes, Travis?
Last Friday, we did the ribbon cutting for Pinnacles Prep.
Yes.
So that was a
That's right.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
good addition to our community for education. I'm excited to see that get kick-started. So,
Yeah, that was and a great ribbon cutting and lots of kids excited to get to school and nice to see all of our students back in school, most wearing masks, I think. And so sounds like that's all getting back to a little bit of normal. And of course, Confluence Health is just full to the brim with the Delta variant and COVID-19 patients. And we did get an ask from Peter Rutherford, and I can't remember, Chief left, might have been Monday or Tuesday. The testing site is there off of Emerson, the old credit union building that Confluence has owned. And I guess the traffic they did 400 tests on, if today's Thursday, I guess it was Tuesday. Or maybe it was Monday, and they asked for us to go down and help them. So we went down and helped set up a staging area in the what would have been normal parking on Emerson. There's some folks down there that aren't very happy with the fact that we removed parking to allow the cars to stage. But at the end of the day, I think that's going to be a testing site, and then I think that's also going to be the booster site. So I think that little area is going to be, you can get tested over at East Wenatchee at the Lifeline ambulance spot, but not near as many people are going there. So we're just going to have to work with the local neighbors and Confluence to try to make that as amenable as possible. I don't know whether there'll be another mass vaccination site. I, for some reason, don't think that's going to happen if you end up with booster shots. But so we're just trying to work with the neighborhood, but also try to understand the public health issue. And so we've had our public works people down there and our police people down there, and we've asked them to hire some security guards to sort of help. But I think from Confluence's perspective, it went much better on Wednesday and Thursday. So, and Tuesday once we got down there. So, but there are people that get used to wanting to park right in front of either their apartment or their business. And so right now they just got to work with us a little bit.
The two tests are different. The tests at Lifeline will let you know.
Right.
But what, for people who are needing travel documentation, pre-surgical documentation, that it's the Confluence Health
Okay.
testing.
That's the reason there are more of them down there. It's a better test and get you more.
And it's probably more known.
Okay.
And yeah, last week when I went by there, I couldn't figure out if they were having a sale on something.
Yeah.
There were so many cars there in the morning when I walked by.
They're actually, if you're traveling, they're turning you away from there and sending you to Walgreens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, we're trying to work with Confluence and the local businesses in that area that. But I think this is going to go on for a little while yet. So.
I think it kind of we've talked about Emerson Street in the past, how narrow that street is, especially with cars parking on both sides. It might be one of those things where parking on one side or the other needs to be suspended for a while.
Yeah, and it technically,
Like forever.
If that's still the best, possibly.
yeah.
If that's still the best site to do it, I gotta
I
believe
think technically the way they're doing this, if you're heading, I'll get this wrong, if you're heading north off of 5th Street, the right-hand lane where there would have been parking is no longer parking. And if you're coming from the north to the south, the right-hand parking is no longer available. Those are the places where they're staging. So, and overall, at some point, I think you're probably right, but for right now, we're sort of using both sides of the street, depending on where they're coming from, to get them sort of to both come into the drive-through area. So really probably not at all big enough, but right now it's where Confluence wants them. They have the abilities to do it's just a more convenient spot for them. So we'll just have to work through that for a little while and hopefully be patient with some of the neighbors who call Melanie and complain to her. Yeah. All right, anything else for the good of the order? Then we'll see you on September oh my goodness, after Labor Day?
9th?
Yeah, after Labor Day, we'll see you on September 9th. All right,
Very good.
we are adjourned.